Welcome to the 7th episode of the second series. We've done quite a lot of TV now, so welcome back. Before we start, I would like to give a very special thank you to Charles Adams, who has kindly sponsored the purchase of a new professional microphone system.
Well, they were supposed to be discreet, but now you're showing me.
No, I want to show you.
But yes, hopefully you'll hear us a little better. We'll take your comments and see if you hear us clearer without any background noise. So thank you, Charles, for attention to detail. We really appreciate your support.
You should be hearing pucker sound on this episode.
That's right.
So there you go. So coming up in this week's episode, we have a meeting with the chair of Southport Hebrew congregation in the lovely northwestern coastal town of Southport, lovely place, who have now joined the United Synagogue. They've joined our ranks, so we did a special welcome and just to see what's going on up north. So we'll meet Gillian Moonman. Then we hear from two authors from within our community, Denise Peters and Esther Marshall, and we have her books in front of us. More on that later. So, Rabbanit, how are you doing?
Thank God, Baruch Hashem. What a busy weekend we had this with the
three bar mitzvahs and one bat mitzvah.
Unbelievable, unbelievable.
It's just a normal week here.
Just a normal week, and all COVID safe, all COVID friendly, and really nice to have people back in Shul.
Shul was we were at capacity. It wasn't packed because we can't be packed, but it was very nice, lovely atmosphere. Beginning to feel a bit normal, not quite yet. Let's be honest. I mean, you can see all around us the tape and things. No one knows how long that's going to last, but
I think the reason why we brought our studio into the Shul is
because we can.
We can, but really to let people bring people into the Shul, right? To let people who are isolating, who can't make it for whatever reason.
So this is the Shul. Remember?
So we're bringing the Shul to you, to your home.
Exactly. Muhammadan mountains come to mind.
That's right. Very, very nice that we have a new member of United Synagogue join. I mean, what makes somebody want to be part of a bigger piece?
I asked her that question.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Well, let's see. Let's go over to Gillian and see what she's got to say.
Oh, well, good morning, Gillian. Lovely to see you again. Welcome to North Lee TV and welcome to United Synagogue.
Good morning, Rabbi. Good tag.
It's really lovely seeing you. So how's life up in Southport? I love Southport.
Well, at the moment, the sun is shining, so you've obviously done something miraculous by turning your switch on because it was terribly windy and rainy before. But we're doing okay, thank you. Although we are in Tier 3 at the moment, but fortunately, places of worship are unaffected, and we have been running our shul services since the 11th of July. But the country is in crisis. I don't think we can make really much more of a comment than that.
Correct. We're all in it together. I think we're Tier 2 here now. So yes, I was delighted to read in the Jewish Chronicle about you joining the United Synagogue. And I just want to know sort of where that came from your side. Has this been in the pipeline for a long time?
Well, first of all, let me say that from all of us in Southport, and on behalf of me as the chairman and the management committee, we are absolutely delighted to be part of the United Synagogue, and it's a lovely opportunity to be able to speak to you today. It was interesting that several years ago, my late husband Eric was approached and asked if he'd like to encourage our shul to join the United Synagogue. And of course, you know, there are always baby steps to begin with, and it was discussed in a very mild sort of manner. And then as the years have passed, probably this was some 5 or 6 years ago, then it was decided on the management committee that this would be rather a useful thing to do. And we had a visit from several of the officials from the United Synagogue and discussed matters and felt that this was going to be an appropriate path for us to take in Southport. And I'm delighted, as I said, that it's now come to fruition. And we're looking forward to a happy, long and fruitful association with the US.
Oh, wonderful. And also it's good to put the northern communities on the map as well, in London as well, especially now when people aren't travelling abroad as much. And so I must say, Southport's a beautiful place to visit. I took you when we were up there in the summer. I took your advice and parked at the Ocean Plaza. Free parking, 3 hours. You don't get that in London.
You certainly don't.
And I had a great day out there. And of course, when I was rabbi in St. Anne's, we always had a great relationship with the shul. I still remember your late husband giving a talk in our shul about his experiences as a Labour MP. It was during one of the anti-Semitism rows.
Yes.
And that was very good. And I see also in the past 8 months or so that you've been joining Zoom services with St Anne's, so you've always maintained good relationships with your neighbours. So what do you feel you'll get out of joining the United Synagogue in terms of your future?
I think whenever a small organisation joins a larger one, there is always something to be gained by that, because you feel you're not isolated. You're part of something which is well established and certainly can offer many, many advantages, be it just communications with other Jewish communities, with education, with access to lectures, Rabbonim. I think the opportunities are enormous, and as we proceed down the line, I'm sure we'll find that other openings will be there, and we'll all be able to be part of a very big United Synagogue family, and I think it can only be for the good.
Amazing, that sounds very good. Do you think other outlying communities may follow your lead? I know Sheffield have joined.
Yes, I think Sheffield are quite well established as a member of the US, and I think there's one of the Birmingham shuls is as well. But I see no reason why this shouldn't happen, because it would bring together communities, Orthodox communities, traditional communities within the United Synagogue. And of course, as you know, that there are shuls in Liverpool. The Manchester shuls, of course, are perhaps quite an exception, because they are the second largest community outside London.
Right.
But I think the scope, maybe Cardiff, you know, who knows?
Yeah, that's nice. And how long have you been the chair at your shul?
I became chair on Shavuos, and it was interesting because normally the inauguration takes place, of course, in shul on the Yontif, and we had a Zoom inauguration with Rabbi Arnold Saunders conducting the proceedings. So as a woman, it was a first, and as a Zoom inauguration, it was a first.
Okay,
So,
you're a pioneer.
well, yes, I never thought I would be, but it would seem to be that way.
But I know you. It might be the first woman chair, but you've always been involved in the synagogue council and the executive as well, haven't you?
Of course, yes, I have. I've been on the council for a number of years, and I did a year as vice chairman as well. And
Right.
it's not that I wanted to break barriers. I was asked, and I felt, having been asked, if I could contribute usefully, then it was only right that I should do that.
Wonderful. You're doing a good job, from what I've heard. How are services working out now in your shul with all the social distancing and things like that?
Well, of course, our shul is very large, and our congregation, unfortunately, is quite small. So in these unusual circumstances, it's been really quite advantageous, because the spacing, the social distancing, we can work beautifully. And we have a one-way system. We have all the necessaries, be it masks and gloves and hand sanitizers and track and trace on arrival. So everything that could be done and should be done is in place. Okay. And this is where our building is absolutely fantastic for this. Obviously, we want everybody to be well and safe and healthy in normal circumstances, but it has worked as I've described.
And it's a beautiful building, an Arnside Road, really, really nice place. And anyone watching here from London, go and visit and pop up to St Anne's while you're there as well.
Indeed, indeed.
Interesting, you know, from St Anne's, you can actually see Southport. It's only about 5 miles as the crow flies, but it's an hour's drive once you have to drive around the Ribble estuary.
Absolutely.
And then when you get there, you see Blackpool Tower.
You do. There are some dangerous channels in that Ribble estuary, and unfortunately people have lost their lives when they've been trying to cross or walk across, because it looks relatively simple, but it's really quite hazardous. But as you say,
didn't there used to be a hovercraft service?
Yes, there was, and then whether it wasn't well supported or whether there was some problem with it, it was quite short-lived, but it was a nice idea.
Yeah, I think we should bring it back. Let's vote for that.
Yes, I think that's a good one.
Yeah, and do you have associations with the communities in Liverpool, Allerton,
yes,
Hillwell?
We do. Excuse me. We are we sit on the Merseyside Jewish Representative Council. Our junior warden, he attends meetings there, and of course those meetings are virtual at the moment as well. Right. So there is an association there, and there's always been a good relationship with Liverpool, as there has with Manchester as well. because we have a rota of Rabbonim and visiting ministers, which was started by my late husband, Over Sholem, and which I now run. So we have a number of ministers, a couple from London as well, but we draw on the Manchester region, and it's rather nice that we have people coming in and bringing their own talents and specialities. And it's variation.
You get a variety. Probably nice for them as well to come to a place like Southport for a Shabbos, you know, to conduct the services and just enjoy a nice Shabbos there as well, because you're a lovely community, you really are. From those I've come across, sadly, at funerals as well.
Of course.
Very, you've got a nice shul and a very, very nice community, and it's wonderful.
Indeed, indeed.
So,
we have the shul flat on the premises, so it's a rather cozy little place for people to come and stay for the weekend, and then they can walk to the promenade or go to the park, whatever they want to do. Yes.
Yeah, how lovely. Well, on behalf of all of us here at Norrisley and the United Synagogue, welcome. Join the club, welcome, and I hope it works out really nicely, and look forward to seeing you in person again soon. Hopefully we'll back up there in the summer.
That would be lovely. I look forward to that. And again, on behalf of the Southport Hebrew congregation, sending best wishes for good health and safety to you and all in the United Synagogue, and for Am Yisrael.
Amen. That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
They don't have a rabbi at the moment, right?
They have a rota, roving rabbis, a lot of them whom I know from Manchester. She also mentioned some come up from London, so I don't know that side of it.
Well, now that she's part of United Synagogue, she'll have a whole slew of
and
rabbis
United Synagogue
and Rebbitzins as well.
Exactly.
To come and visit, and it looks like a beautiful building.
It's very nice, an Armside Road. We were just there a couple of months ago, summer holidays. Really, really nice. And they really are a lovely, warm community. And I might go myself, if I want a Shabbos off from here. Go there. I'll have to perform for it, but you get to stay in a lovely shul on the coast.
Yeah, she said there's a nice little apartment in there, so hopefully it'll fit your family as well.
A nice community, and we hope it works out well for them. And it's good that we see there is a nice life up north, a very nice, warm, not so sunny life up there.
They used to say when the weather's cold, the people are warm, right? Up north. But anyway, it's nice to see during these COVID period that things are happening. There is positivity. There is community bonding and building. We know that there was a lot of pain and suffering, and there continues to be.
Sure.
I don't think we even hit, unfortunately, the economic and the emotional and the mental health.
Well, the effects will be
a
long time coming.
Right, but
sadly.
And everybody is coping with it in various ways. We have two individuals who shared their pain. It was like more of a therapeutic process. And they put it down to paper, their feelings to paper. Rabbi Friedman meets Denise Peters, who talks about the loss of her mother and the pain and suffering that she went through, and how she was able to continue living with her memory. So let's go over to Rabbi Friedman.
Denise Peters, welcome to Norrisley TV. It's such an honor and a privilege to have such a wonderful member of HGSS join us this evening on Norrisley TV. And you're with us tonight to discuss your book, Navigating Grief.
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's good to have you. We should have simchas, but certainly we have had simchas this year. It's been a complicated year. You lost your mother, and we were there together through that process, and then we celebrated your granddaughter's bat mitzvah. So there's been times of celebrations and yet times of grief, and it's been no doubt a whirlwind of emotions for you this year.
It certainly has, because I want to feel free in my heart to celebrate what's good, and I hope I really genuinely have been. But in the back of my mind, I've got, in fact, you may recall, two bereavements that my mother has.
Wendy's as well. Wendy's your cousin. In the same week. In the same week.
3 days. and next of kin to both. So it's been a really tough time with the lockdown. Obviously, we're 7 months on, so I've had a lot of time to reflect on what has happened, not only to me, but to so many other people. I mean, it's a devastating situation. That, you know, I wasn't alone going through this, although I was actually alone, isolated in my home, you know, coming to terms with all of this and working through. So for me, the book is my hope that my experience with my own insights, because of my training and just my predisposition, will help other people to recognize what they've been going through, and hopefully give them some comfort that there is light at the end of the tunnel and they will feel better. That they will never forget their loved one, but they will be able to move on with their own life in their own time.
Well, and thank you for sharing your experiences and your innermost thoughts and feelings with the world. I see that it has been picked up and noticed. The Times quoted you the other week. So again, for our viewers, the name of the book is Navigating Grief. You can find it on Amazon. And there was already a first run sell out, and it's already on the second run. But thank you, Denise, for it's almost like diary entries that Denise jotted down through those feelings of grief, but also through the prism of having counseled many people over the years through the crisis line. Tell our viewers a little about your background in counseling people.
I started 25 years ago at Regent's College. I did a course in psychotherapy and counselling, but then did crisis listening in the crypt of a church in Marylebone Road for just anybody to come into, just literally off the street, who had a problem or were in crisis. So I did that for a few years. And then I decided to train for Childline, because my actual passion is children and their well-being, and that children should be given respect that they deserve. So I did that training, and I spoke to many children in terrible situations for another 3 years, giving, you know, people, and then I moved on to Samaritans and did their training, where I've been a Samaritan for 3 years, but I'm now on compassionate leave. I'm not sure what the future will bring for me there, because it was also, I'm very passionate about helping people, and most of the training is listening, and it's non-advice giving, whereas in this book I have given advice as I feel fit, you know, for people who didn't have the closure that they may have needed when their loved one was passing of coronavirus. I mean, it's a tragedy, and I feel that it's a desperation and like a painful hole inside their hearts for not being able to be with them. And my wish is to try and assist them to be kind to themselves, so that the pain will diminish and they'll be able to feel the love for both themselves and for the person who has passed away, and look forward to their own life, which is still here and still to be lived. But you know, I feel so sad for those people, because even though coronavirus was definitely in the air, I was able to be with my mother, and my children could be around her bed. She knew we were there for the first week anyway. Yeah.
I mean, I think that was really such a confusing time. It was early in the piece, and nobody really knew it was a surreal week that your mother, bless her memory, passed, in that it almost left you with a lack of closure, because there were those who had closure with a proper shiva prior to coronavirus, and there were those who later had the new system of Zoom shivas, where there was something that happened, and then you were almost sandwiched in between. I want to share with our viewers the way that the funeral and shiva looked that week. Just thinking back into a slice of history that is unimaginable if it weren't real. So Denise's mother passed, Denise's cousin passed. That week, I officiated at a funeral, I think, almost every day of the week. Still at the time, nobody was being diagnosed or written on the death certificate as having died from coronavirus. There was a lot of, it was almost a taboo subject to have coronavirus, and nobody wanted to say, yes, I had anything to do with it. And so doctors weren't even necessarily reporting that this may have been. So we don't even know till today whether your mother, whether coronavirus had anything to do with your mother's passing, although certainly there were lung issues that she didn't go into hospital with. And so then, after the funeral, I mean, I think you were telling me earlier, one gets the choice at the end of the funeral. Does one want to sit, or does one pass through the shura? And your mother had already warned you, don't let anybody touch you. There's a pandemic out there. And you said, let me just pass straight through. So we finished the funeral, and then, and again, this is going to sound crazy when you think about it. That night, I went off to a bar mitzvah. I was at a bar mitzvah, and people are dancing. I didn't dance. I was already thinking to myself, this doesn't make any sense. People are dancing on the dance floor. I'm sitting there in the parking lot, then meeting with the family over Zoom for a funeral I'm doing the next day. And then I come over to your son's home, and we have a private shiva house, because shiva is already forbidden, that we're not allowed shiva services, and yet people are still celebrating. That's how you think back. And so I think it's very helpful that you've allowed people a system of guidance. Now, obviously, everybody grieves differently, and bereavement is different for everyone, but to be able to have a framework, at least to begin with, and be able to put it in some sort of system to be able to work through it, especially if there was no closure. You've done a real incredible service to a lot of people who are just trying to find their way. So thank you for that. What would you say, Denise, to someone who is really struggling right now?
I would say, don't isolate yourself. Talk to people about how you're feeling. It's truly cathartic. In the book, my emails were cathartic. I didn't even know who I was writing to. I just poured it out. And it made me understand how I was truly feeling. If I may, I wanted to say a little bit about the 5 stages that people may be going through, because I think that would be helpful.
Let's review that. I know that there are different schools of thought when it comes to grief and grief stages, but please do.
Well, it's just really to show that I'm sort of understanding how they're feeling, and you can label the feelings however you name it. I remember denial, the cold numbness and disbelief. I mean, you may remember when we met the night before the funeral. Yes. You met with my family at my other son's house, and it was a very special evening. It was lovely, but I sat there and said nothing. Everybody spoke. I didn't even speak. And I've obviously got quite a lot to say. And, it was the middle of the night when I wrote the eulogy that I delivered, because I really did have a lot to say, but I was just numb. So that's denial, which, can go on for a few days, especially if the funeral is postponed or something, you don't believe it. And then the anger that can come to say, how could this happen to me? How could she or he do this to me? I mean, why did this happen? It's sort of anger and frustration. It's all these things take a different amount of time for different people to go through, but then there's the bargaining, which is, I call it the if only syndrome, which is very useful, but one mustn't be stuck in it. You know, if only I'd got her to hospital sooner, or if only the doctor had come, or if only I hadn't gone on holiday, because I did go on holiday, so I didn't see her for the few days. You can't change it. You have to work your way through it and realize for yourself that you couldn't do anything different. This is how it happened. But it's therapeutic to go through that stage.
I think it was actually during that period that, you know, we were in touch, and I was seeing Mum regularly in the hospital. As it happened, my daughter was in the hospital at the time, and I was seeing Mum just a few floors up.
Right. And I made you come back again. I got you there twice. I remember that because, you know, I know she would have loved that, and it was very special. Then depression sets in because you realize that your loved one has left you and won't be physically coming back, although they'll be there with you in your heart and in your thoughts. You can't hug them, they're not there, you know, and you see empty chairs and things like that where they should be. And slowly, each person takes a different time. Your brain helps you justify, well, this has happened, and I must accept that this has happened. It doesn't suit me, but it's happened, and it just helps you move forward. Everybody takes their own time, you know, and all these feelings keep coming back, but eventually they subside. The memory doesn't subside. There's triggers of music or photographs, or, you know, I see a program on television that I used to watch with her.
You do mention in the book that some of those can be good triggers and evoke good memories.
They will be. Eventually there will be. That everybody listening, there is light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I look okay, I feel okay, but 2 days ago I was crying about my mother. You know, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go away, but it just gets much better. And everybody lives with it. Birth, life, death, all natural things. And with the support from you and from Nefesh, it's just been wonderful. I'm forever grateful because it really did help me, So everybody out there, don't bottle up your feelings. Don't be ashamed of how you're feeling. Talk, share. There's love there for you. People care what's happened to you and they understand. And you know, you may keep bringing your loved one into conversations. That's because you love them and it's natural. It's all okay. Just like to say at the end of everything, being positive is the key. But my book, I don't profess it to be a one-hat-fits-all scenario because everybody grieves differently. But from the feedback that I have received, I'd like to think it will help and assist and touch many.
Thank you for taking your experiences and having the courage to share them with the world and to be able to make things easier for people. Yes, that is the book, Navigating Grief. Once again, it is available on Amazon. Denise Peters.
Rather free, accessible, compassionate, and pithy, apparently. Pithy. All right. Thank you so much, Rabbi Fried.
Thank you so much, Denise.
Well, thank you, Denise Peters, for sharing your innermost feelings with us and to the world, really. Navigating Grief can be found on Amazon. It's really amazing how people find ways to cope,
yeah.
And to mourn. You know,
and everyone's different. There's no one size fits all.
Right, absolutely.
Even with siblings who are bereaving the same loved one, everyone has different ways of coping. But thank you, Denise, for sharing with us. Very brave of you, and we thank you. Now we also hear from Esther Marshall, They suffered a bereavement last year, and she's written this amazing book geared at children, but the message is absolutely for adults as well, where she says it's okay not to be okay.
That's right.
You can't argue with that, can you?
Absolutely not. So let's go over to Esther and see why she wrote this book and what it's all about. Thank you.
Well, welcome Esther Marshall to Norsley TV.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
So you recently authored a children's book, It's Okay to Not Be Okay. I actually noticed it on Facebook. I saw it. I was like, wow, that looks quite catchy. I said, what is this all about? Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved, and are you an author? What's your background?
Hi, so I'm Esther. I grew up as a child at Norsley throughout my entire time, but I'm now working at a company called Unilever, a massive company that does a ton of products that you probably all have in your home, Dove, Shaw, etc., all the household names. I work in something called diversity and inclusion, so how we can make people feel more included in the world. And I am not an author by any stretch of the imagination. I just felt so compelled after tragically losing my sister in January to mental health, to start to talk about mental health and how important it is for children to understand about their feelings from a young age. And so I wrote this book in memory of her, and in the hope that her legacy would live on through, hopefully thousands of children reading this book and understanding that it is okay not to be okay.
That sounds very powerful. So tell us a little about the research that I'm sure that you put a lot of time and effort into, finding the words and how to go about this. I mean, I remember, just you said, it's not even a year since Rebecca passed, and it was a real tragedy for the community. Like I said, you were a real, grew up in Norsley, and Rebecca as well, and it was a real loss to the community, and we really felt that. And so tell us about what research went into writing this book and how you came about finding the right words.
Yeah, there's a lot of the messages in there that I would speak to Rebecca about while she was in hospital. She said she wished she would have known when she was younger. Some of these messages, one of them was, a smile may be what you see, but that's not what you see inside me. That was very clear when I was having my conversations with her, that she felt the need to put on this smile, but there was serious turmoil going inside, and other things like, always remember to be kind, because you never know what's going on in someone's mind. You never know what's going on up here. So always try and see the best in people, understand that, but tell people if you're not feeling okay. So a lot of the wording in it came from conversations and understanding a little bit more about mental health. But I also commissioned some research, especially during this pandemic, to talk to parents about how they're feeling about the mental health of themselves, but specifically their children. And over 80% of parents came back saying they are very worried about their children's mental health. Yet only a third of those parents said that they had any resources to help them talk to their children about mental health, and that actually they were worried about talking about the subject because they thought maybe they'd make it worse for their child. If their child was young and hadn't thought about it, and then suddenly the parents were bringing this up, then it would almost scare them. So I thought about how can we make something that's positive, right? That's proactive, rather than you get to a point where your mental health gets so bad and you have to talk about all the dark and horrible things. How do we teach young children, because the book is for age 2 to 8, how do we teach young children to be positive about their mental health, to look after their mental health as much as they need to look after their physical health? And so that's kind of the point around the book. It's a very positive, fun book. It's about Jamie, who's this character here, who's feeling really sad, and how his friends try and cheer him up. And they go to the zoo and they go to the fairground, and there's some very deep messages inside, but it's all very fun and it's very light, and it's very much a toolkit that parents and teachers are taking to talk to their children about it in a very positive way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's true, because, you know, even the adults themselves, you know, don't know how and what to do with. I mean, you know, we're guilty of it as well. You know, sometimes, you know, seeing somebody, you know, not saying hello or not, you know, giving you a smile or whatever, and you're like, okay, so was she upset at me? Did I upset her? You know, you don't know what's going on in their mind, right? It works both ways. And sometimes you have the smile and you don't know they're really in pain. So it's an important message. I think you're right, even for adults need to know that, but let alone the young children, to know that it's okay to, you know, to have different feelings. And so and do you find that during, especially now during COVID, I mean, why now did you create this book? And is there more of a demand for people to recognize these issues?
I think, you know, when I wrote it back in January, kind of the week after Rebecca passed away, I found the nights after the shiver, my brain was just going a million miles an hour. That's when I wrote it in the night, just to kind of stop myself from thinking all the things that was going on. I didn't realize that COVID was coming, right? And the conversation around mental health was happening, but it was, you know, I felt like we needed to push it. Whereas COVID has accelerated that conversation. You know, suddenly for most people who'd never really thought about mental health, every single person has probably been through some form of day where they felt really down.
Yeah, it's okay. They felt it.
Yeah, exactly. It's feeling it. Where they felt really down, and, you know, they don't have people around, especially, you know, the elderly or people who were shielding. You know, they're at home by themselves. They can't do the things that they would normally do. And suddenly, you know, the anxiety, especially for children, for parents, are our kids going to go to school? Are they not going to go to school? Can we go into people's houses to see people? Can we not? We can't travel away. We can't take a break. We can't see family in other countries. You know, so suddenly this is so high on everybody's minds, especially in teachers and parents, of how on earth do we stop this from becoming the new pandemic? You know, mental health in our children and you know, a generation that are going to be so affected by this, because, you know, if this goes on for another year or whatever, what that's done to them, we need to really make sure that we're doing something properly. And that's why I hope resources like this and many others really do help. But I think there's a massive demand for it right now, in adults and in children.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole debate, right? You know, the government talking about another lockdown, and they're like, no, you know, the adverse effects that it can have, and, you know, we're already seeing a lot of it, and it's definitely something that we need to recognize for ourselves, and, like you say, and for the children, to be able, to, you know, for them, they're scared to go out now, right? I mean, you know, we're not allowed to go out there, right? And there's a whole, you know, snowball effect about how that could. So how would you? I mean, I know we just recently, a couple of weeks ago, we had the big mental health awareness, right?
World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October. Yeah.
Right. So I guess that's where you wanted to publish. That's why you published the book right at this time. Mm-hmm. And so it you know, you talk about, you know, I have it here as well. You're right. It's so simple. You know, it gives you the simple tools on how to just talk about feelings, right? Because even like adults, we're not used to talking about how we feel. Mm-hmm. And there's probably a difference between females and males. And you probably, in the research, have you seen any of that? Did that come up at all?
There's so much around what they call toxic masculinity. You know, that the man needs to be this brave, macho figure, can't talk about his feelings, can't show that he's sad. And that's specifically why I chose a male character in the book to feel down, addressing that directly head on, that it's, you know, there's one line that says, whoever you are, show me your eyes, it's okay to cry, you know, like whether you're male or female, whether you're macho or not, or whatever, it's okay, you know, it will help you to show how you're feeling. Yeah.
And the idea is, I guess, to really talk about it. So to just talk it through, so you'll be able to know where to direct, you know, your feelings, and so you don't, I guess, are not lost into, okay, what's next, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess just recognizing it. You know, we talked about, you know, the film that came out a few years ago, The Inside Out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was talking about that offline, and how I remember taking my kids to that, and I thought it was so real, because it showed the feelings about what that one character was going through, the angry, the upset, the jealous, the, you know, and it was, and recognizing each part of it was, you know, I think was a really important part to be able to say, okay, this is how I feel, and I think the schools are recognizing that now, right, with mindfulness, right, or well-being, a lot, right.
I think it's super high on loads of their agendas, because they are coming back into school with kids coming back incredibly anxious, not knowing what's going on. All they see in the news is, you need to wear a mask, people are dying, you know. No, but you can come back into school and mix with your friends. You know, there's a lot of anxiety, I think, in young children, because they don't know exactly what's going on, and no one can give them real answers, because even the government can't.
Right.
You know? So there's so much up in the air, and that's difficult for children who like structure. It's difficult for adults, difficult for me, for you, you know, let alone our children. So I think it's so vitally important that we have things like this, and that it's constantly spoken about and constantly shown that it's okay. Tell me if you're angry, tell me if you're sad. Why are you sad? You're happy? That's great. Why are you happy? You know, those kind of things. It doesn't always have to be because you're down or you're scared or something, but you know, we've had messages from so many parents saying, you know, I've been able to have conversations with my children and found out things that they were sad or scared about that I just had no idea. And because we can talk about other things, and they've become so much happier, and they're sleeping better, and you know, like, it's so simple. And it's such a proactive step that people can take. But because we've all grown up so ingrained to always put on this brave face, and we're okay, and everything's fine, and we fit into society, and
I think that's right.
It doesn't come as naturally, I think, now to kind of our generation and older generations to kind of bring forward to the younger generation.
Right. And I guess it'll also help the youth, right? Because I mean, a lot of times we see it peak in the mental health in the youth, right? Teenagers, where they don't know, they're not used to talking about their feelings, and suddenly they're going through all this, and we have no idea. And it's probably a lot harder, you know, to deal with later. So when you start younger, it's something that by the time they're teenagers, they're able to talk it through. I mean, and there's probably a difference between the two.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I found when I was writing the first one, which is Sophie Says I Can, I Will. I was reading a lot about behavioral science, and found out that children understand where they fit in society and who they are by kind of 18 months to 3 years, depending on the child, which is so scary to me and this is why I wrote it when I had my son. I wrote it in the night while I was feeding him, because I felt very lonely, feeding hour after hour, and you know, everyone else is asleep and it's fine, but you're up at night. I was like, well, if my son is going to understand that, and how privileged he is to grow up in a middle-class society, I want him to understand that some people don't grow up like that, and you know, people will be different to him, but it's good to meet different people. And so that's where the first one came from. And so I think, like you're saying, for the youth, you know, these mantras, I can, I will, it's okay not to be okay. I'm writing the third one at the moment, is be proud of who you are. These real mantras that I hope young children can take through from their childhood into their youth and into their adulthood, that I can imagine if there's, you know, adults watching this, I wish I would have thought about some of this in my corporate life. If I can, I will, even though someone's told me I couldn't. It's all the messages I wish I would have really learned and ingrained in myself from when I was little, that I hope that the young generation, the next generation, can take through, right from being 2 all the way through to their youth and into their adulthood, and build that resilience that you need to live in this century.
Right, amazing. So the first book is more about, you know, finding their place and giving them that confidence,
Yes, very much so. It also came from a place of this overwhelming sense of responsibility. I have a son now, and I want him to know that mommy can do things too. You know, mommy goes to work, daddy goes to work. It's okay. We're both at home. We both cook. We both, you know, that
Right.
he should treat everybody as equally as possible and be kind. So it's in there. It's that kind of empowering self-belief that he will, but another child that maybe didn't have necessarily the same things as him growing up should also be able to do those things as well. So kind of empowering them.
Amazing. Well, Yasher Koch on the amazing work that you did and continue to do, and it's an important message that I think you're doing in memory of Rebecca. I know her memory will be there for a long time. She's definitely, like I said, had a big impact in our community, and it was a big loss. She's definitely left a legacy, and we will ensure that, you know, we do what we can to spread the importance of making sure that we speak to the young, to the people, and to the adults, to make sure that we have those conversations.
Yeah, well, she lives on in every book, because I remember when Norris Lee sent out the email to the community to announce her passing, there were obviously still already that some of the news had come out. We had loads of people in the house, and literally we all got the email, and it was so scary. Suddenly outside it went dark, and like loads of people were in the house, and then instantly the sun came out and this rainbow came out.
Oh, I remember that.
And we were all like, oh my goodness, she's telling us she's safe. And so that's why the rainbow is on the front of the book and continues in the book, because her legacy is there. Like, she is there with every child and every parent that's reading this book, that she's still going to be in their lives and all of our lives. So that for me has been really poignant, and has been like a really nice way to help me kind of grieve through the process as well.
Right, I'm sure it's very therapeutic, and yeah, I can imagine. So we wish you a lot of strength and continued, you know, hatzlacha with everything that you do. And we always love to see Usher with your parents in shul, and he always brings a bright smile. Always nice to have the little ones around.
Thank you so much for having me on. I hope that people heed the message and really help speak to their children or grandchildren about their feelings. And if anyone wants to reach out, then please let me know. Thank you so much.
So where can they find the books? Where are they available?
So they're on our website, which is www.sophiesaysofficial.com. I can give you the website, and you can send out if need be.
Absolutely, we'll share it. Okay, yeah. Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much, and Yasher Koach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Esther, for sharing this with us. And like you said, it's such an important message for adults to really, you know, teach the kids while they're young, right? I mean, that's when you have to, you know, I was thinking about it. When we teach young kids Moda'ani, right?
Yeah.
Hashem is here, Hashem, right? When do we start? We don't start when they're adults. We start when they're kids. We want them to be able to learn, and so it becomes natural. And for whatever reason, many of us don't know that it's okay to share our feelings, say how you know, what's going on through our minds and whatnot. And so this is an important point that
a very powerful message.
Very powerful message, and
it's always nice seeing her little boy Asher.
Yes.
Comes with his grandparents, Dr. and Dr. Marshall. He's very sweet and
very sweet. Yeah. So
very well behaved.
Very well behaved. Looking and saying Amen now. He's beginning to talk and being part of the service.
Our youngest worshipper on most weeks.
That's right. Yeah. And like you say, you know, this is actually for adults too. You know, the adults need to recognize that, you know, it's important to talk, and especially during this time. You know.
Everybody has issues they've got to deal with, and sometimes we don't feel okay, but that's okay.
That's okay. That's right.
And we know that music does a lot to many, and we had a musical, beautiful Kabbalat Shabbat on Friday night that we shared it with on Facebook Live, but unfortunately it didn't show up, and so we apologize. And so tonight we're going to end with Chazan Avrami, To Your Home once again.
Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining. It's good night from me, and it's good night from me.
She Next paragraph. Likras Shabbos lechuven elcha ki hi mekar habracha. Come, let's run out and greet the Shabbos. Ki hi mekar habracha, for it is the source of all blessing. That's the way we're supposed to feel at the end of the week. You see, now the rabbi and the chazan don't always feel that way because that's when they go into work. But for all of the rest of the world, it's the end of the week. Sit back, refresh, because Shabbat is Makar HaBracha. It is the source of all blessing. Can we take it up a little bit, Rafi? Likara Shabbat lecho b'nei lecho ki mekar HaBracha meirot k'heleh Dodi Likeras Kala Shahabos Nekabela Ayayayayis Mahari Meyo Forku Milishi Bigede Tifartaychami Aryan Ben Shai Ben Salach Nikorba Nafshi Gel